welcome to episode 3 of the Madness and Grace podcast. Today, Matt and I are joined by Dr. Gregory Jantz. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Jantz. How are you?
Good to be with you today. It's going to be good.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. Yeah, Dr. Jantz is somebody that I've admired for some time and met him at the American Association of Christian Counselors meeting, and we usually are there every year speaking. So let me introduce our distinguished guest today. Dr. Jantz is the founder of the Center, a Place of Hope in Edmonds, Washington, voted a top 10 facility for depression treatment in the United States. Dr. Jantz pioneered whole person care in the 1980s and is a world-renowned expert on depression, anxiety, eating disorders, technology addiction, and abuse. He's an innovator in the treatment of mental health, utilizing a variety of therapies, including nutrition, sleep therapy, spiritual counseling, and advanced DBT techniques. Dr. Jantz is a best-selling author of 40 books and a go-to media authority on mental and behavioral health, appearing on every station you can imagine. And that's the reason we have him here today, is to have a conversation with us about depression. So I think we could just jump into that. We could talk for hours, but we just have a short period of time.
Thank you, Dr. Matt.
Yeah, well, I'll kick us off with some of our questions. So, Dr. Jantz, what led you to become a mental health provider in the first place?
Okay, good grief. That's been over 40 years ago. And weird to say that. I can't imagine saying that. So when I was in school, counselor training, I started to think about a different way of delivering mental health services, a different way of doing this. And we founded the Center, a Place of Hope, and this is our 39th year. But we looked at how to really integrate the whole person. So one of the first things we brought on staff was a pastoral counselor. And then we brought on a dietitian, and then we brought on, I think we always had a psychiatrist aboard, but we brought together a team that could really work with the whole person. Today, we do psychiatric care, we do natural health care, we do dietitians, we do fitness. Everybody coming to us gets a fitness assessment. So we're integrating the whole person on a Christian foundation. Interesting, about maybe 50% of our clients coming to us, they don't really come because I want Christian help. They just want to get help. Right. So, but that's our foundation, our Christian faith, and our team members share the same values and beliefs. So, but it's a little unique process in that we actually build a team for each client. So everybody's a little different. We work them out about 6 hours a day over 4 weeks for 6 days a week. So we've put a lot of effort in a short period of time, really to minister to the whole person. So I just started thinking about a different way of doing mental health.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's a great answer. And frankly, that's somewhere the same reason that I got into it, because I just didn't like what I was seeing out there and wanted to see it a different way. Now, you mentioned depression, and I mentioned that earlier. That's one of your expertise. I think we kind of use these psychological terms very cheaply in society. You hear people every day say, "Oh, I'm so depressed." And when you and I talk about depression, I mean, we're talking about a serious clinical disorder where someone oftentimes is very, very impaired and not able to function and may need an inpatient treatment, depending on how severe that is. How can somebody tell the difference that's out there that isn't a trained provider? How can they tell the difference between, say, having the blues or being in that kind of a funk versus clinical depression?
Yes. And depression is kind of a misunderstood term, and it encompasses a lot of different things for people. I think of 2 words. Depression's big enough in my life that I feel despair, I feel despondency. I'm really not able to function very well on a daily basis. My hygiene is not good. My sleep. Oh boy, do we see sleep disorders. I forgot to tell you, we have a sleep lab. We actually look at people's sleep because that's a big part of it as well. So when I look at depression, I like the word. I think you said disabling. It affects our functioning. And we're just seeing a lot more of that right now, maybe more than ever before.
Yeah, actually just last week I saw a new data from a 2022 survey that came out. 54% of Americans say that they are presently presenting with the symptoms of depression. I don't know that we've ever seen it where a majority of people are presenting, and it was almost the same number for anxiety. It was over 50%. So I think we're in a real bad place right now. It's tough out there. It's really tough out there.
Dr. Matt, I think we're in a mental health crisis out there.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I keep hearing, people talk about the pandemic, and that certainly made things worse. But I think we're kind of forgetting, not you and I aren't forgetting, but I think a lot of people are forgetting it was a disaster beforehand. It's only gotten worse since the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like a magnifying glass is just everything has come home, and now we're really all struggling. So you've mentioned faith several times, and as a person of faith and a mental health care provider, how do you see depression from, say, a spiritual perspective? How would you talk to a client about the spiritual aspects of their depression?
Well, some really desire that, and others are not sure, and others say no. So I look at it as really an opportunity to look at an area of your life that maybe you haven't looked at before. I believe in the power of prayer and praying for wisdom about what is the missing pieces to the puzzle. Sometimes a person may come, they go, I've tried 5, 6 different medications. I've been in counseling for a long time, but I ask, well, Lord God, show us, enlighten us, show us what are the potential missing pieces to the puzzle. What's still missing? And if a person has, let's say, a significant thyroid issue, they're going to feel depressed and anxious. If a person has hormonal issues that are way out, they're going to feel depressed and anxious. So, Lord, show us what's the missing piece. Is it unresolved trauma? So I really believe that's an opportunity to really speak really God's love into their life. And I believe that really through the Lord, we get insight on how to best help.
Great. That's excellent. Excellent. I really like the way that you guys, and I have to out myself and say I've referred plenty of people to the center, particularly those with depression. I think it's a great place and I can't recommend it enough. But you've mentioned several times kind of different aspects that I think of kind of physical health that I think a lot of times people wouldn't think about. So you mentioned when you're talking about mental health issues, you talk about thyroid, talk about some of these other types of things. And I really like that idea of kind of, a person's come to you and they're manifesting a problem, they're in distress, and then really not kind of, pigeonholing yourself to say, well, it has to be within this one little domain. I like the idea of the whole person approach that you take. Let's really figure out. And I also think, to some extent, you could put that into a very spiritual context, because that's how God looks at us as a whole person: body, mind, spirit, relationships. And I think that's the kind of the approach that we need to take when we're dealing with mental health problems, as opposed to just say, well, it's just this or just that. Kind of take the person where they are and figure that out. So I love the way you guys you do that. So it can take a long time to get into mental health and get into treatment. The wait averages are horrible. People can wait weeks, even months to get in, if they can even find a provider. Can you give some tips to individuals or families that might be struggling with depressive symptoms and things that they might do while they are waiting, while maybe they've made an appointment and it's going to be 8 weeks before they get in? What are some things that they can do that might help them manage some of those depressive symptoms they're struggling with?
Great question, Dr. Matt. Okay, here's the first thing that came to my mind. And it's okay. I understand it can be really painful to wait. But boy, what a great anchor point. I know that I'm getting in or I'm getting an assessment. It's up and coming. What do I need to do before I get there? Well, let's help out this future provider and let's start to gather some information. Maybe what you could do is even keep a food diary, a food log everything that you're eating, everything that's going into your mouth. Show what a typical day is like. Maybe it's a sleep log. Maybe what time I tried to go to bed, what time I think I fell asleep, how much did I sleep each night? Did I feel rested? But begin to assimilate information. If you have top 5, 6, 10 priorities that you want to be sure are talked about, is it a trauma? Maybe there's a secret addiction Have you started to use alcohol to cope or turning to food? Begin to journal and put those things down. It can be really insightful before you get to your first appointment. I had a guy that just recently, before he got here, he said, I realized I was drinking about 10 to 12 cups of coffee a day.
Oh, wow.
Wow. It's like, okay, that might have an effect. But
That's
it's
an
just like
addiction people don't talk about very often.
yeah. It gets your awareness up. Go, I didn't realize I was doing that.
Right. Yeah, I had a client once who she had pretty significant bipolar disorder, but she was complaining, as you just mentioned a moment ago, as we get here at the Hope and Healing Center as well, complaining about her not being able to sleep. And which is very common, probably, frankly, maybe the most common complaint that we'll hear. And and so I started going through those types of things with her, and she said, we also were talking about how she deals with stress. And she said, well, when I get really stressed out I'll go down to this, this convenience store, and I get this like 42-ounce Diet Coke because they'll refill her cup if she bought this special cup. Mm-hmm. And she was drinking 6 of those a day. Oh, and I go, well, why do you think you're not sleeping? I mean, you're drinking 6 42-ounce Diet Cokes full of sugar and caffeine. And she goes, oh, well, I couldn't make it through the day without that. And so, we had to put in a regimen, just like you probably did with your coffee drinker, of kind of cutting that down. But I love what you say there about, becoming an informed consumer before you go to the physician. Yeah. Because he or she's going to ask you a lot of questions. Yep. And you're the historian. You have to be able to give them the information. The more information you can give them, the more time frames you can give them of when things started and what's going on, the much better they can help you to begin with. And it does become much less of a kind of a guessing game, as sometimes mental health care kind of looks like. So, as we're talking about kind of treatment here, at the center, you do take this whole person approach to treatment. Yeah. So could you kind of think about kind of your average client that you would see with depression that's going to be there with you for 4 or 5 weeks? Sure. And tell us, what is that whole person? What does it look like on an average day for that person? Mm. And I know that it would vary from person to person, and how does that differ from what they might get more at a traditional facility?
Oh, sure. Well, it's going to be a heavy one-on-one experience. We do groups, and you may be in a group, but you're going to have an individual schedule of about 6 hours a day that's really geared just for you. We've selected team members or providers that are really geared towards you, your needs, who you are, your age. We're taking all that into a factor. Who's going to be the best matches? So we always begin, we're going to do a medical eval. We're going to take blood. We're going to do an assessment medically. You're going to have a psychological or psychiatric type assessment, meet with the psychiatrist or nurse practitioner. And we're going to begin just to assess. We want to do all this at the front end so that we can really understand more and more initially what's going on. And you're going to have a primary counselor or kind of a lead counselor who you're going to have a fair number of sessions with. So a day is a pretty full day. Oh, we're even going to do that at some point, that fitness assessment, and you're going to be given a plan. And part of the goal is we just want to get you moving. If it's walking around the block, we want to get you moving. We want you to increase some water intake, just some simple things. We want to get you going. And then we're also going to be interested in what are the issues around faith. There have been traumas. There have been things that have happened to you that you feel, God doesn't love me, in some way feel shame or defectiveness. We want to address all those issues. That's usually done in the individual sessions. You may be in a group with others as well. DBT groups. We've got faith groups where you can safely explore issues of faith and look at those. There's even a cooking class. I forgot about that. 3 evenings a week. We work really hard during the day, and so at the end of the day, 3 evenings a week, there are different cooking classes, and just to make, if you will, food fun again. How do I cook and keep it healthy and have fun with food again? And that's kind of if you will, because everybody participates in it. It's kind of a lighter way of ending a day,
Right.
but it's all about self-care.
Right.
You may have a sleep, you may even have a sleep. We do sleep studies. We may look at what's going on in sleep as well.
What I hear you saying there is, I think most people listening are, they may be somewhat surprised by this very broad approach that you're taking there, and which is sad and unfortunate that they're surprised by that, because I think that at least what I see in clients, and we do all outpatient care here at the Hope and Healing Center, but we do a very similar kind of thing. Talk about exercise, talk about nutrition, and it's a much broader based approach than you see kind of just generally. And I think that the take home message, I think that you and I would want people with depression or family members that are caring for someone depression to hear is, there is no magic bullet. Yeah, you're not going to go down to a physician and he or she's going to throw some pills at you and then everything's going to be wonderful. You need to really figure out what the core aspects of these disorders are. You need to take a broad-based approach to care, and that physical health is just as important as mental health, because they all run together, because we're this broad-based being. And would you say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, would you say that good mental health care is more of a broad-based approach than just focusing on a single therapeutic intervention? So you just take medicine, or you just go to a therapist, or you just exercise a lot. Wouldn't you rather see a client with that more broad-based approach to care?
Yes, absolutely. And here's what's great. As we're kind of more broad, we narrow it down. We kind of feel like maybe sometimes the first week is a lot of evaluation, but we're narrowing it down. And you know what? That's back to that prayer for wisdom. Lord, show us what the missing pieces are. Even something, so often people come in and their vitamin D level is super low and go, okay, that's going to pull you down. So we want to look at what are all the missing pieces to the puzzle. And it takes a little bit of patience. We also know being with others and just in an environment, I'm waving at the water. We're near the waterfront, where it's just a great place. You don't need a car. You can walk to everything, but environment's important, and Absolutely. An environment that really believes in hope. I believe that people don't come here by accident, and we have really a sense, an obligation to do all that we can with God's help for that limited time that we have them. And I think part of what keeps me going is I do see lives changed. I think I'm the kind of person nothing really changed. It wouldn't be very encouraging to me. So that's part of what keeps me going. I probably do feel maybe more passionate now than ever, because sometimes it's hard, I know, but there is help available. There are answers, and we just sometimes have to really make a decision to stay in the game.
Well, I think that's a fantastic way to end. For those that are listening, if you're struggling with depression or you have a loved one, I can't echo enough what Dr. Jantz just said, and that is that there is hope. Because there are effective treatments. There are incredible mental health care providers out there that want to help you move forward. And there are people like individuals and providers at the center and at the Hope and Healing Center and at many other places around the country that want to integrate your faith into those treatments to help you not only become more healthy from a mental health perspective, but to grow spiritually. So, Dr. Jantz, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. We will put information in the links below about the center. And I look forward to seeing you in the near future at upcoming AACC meetings.
We keep doing it, don't we?
That's right. So thanks for being with us.
Oh, good to be with you. And I know we both believe in hope, and it's an integral part. And hope comes when we have a plan, and we want to help be a part of that plan.
Thank you very much. Emily?
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jantz. I really appreciate it. And for all of you out there who are listening, stay tuned for our next episode where Matt and I are going to be answering some listener questions. So I'm really excited about that. And if you are listening right now and you have a question you would like Matt to answer on the podcast, whether it's personal or just related to something in the mental health sphere, you can send your questions to me at contact@hhci HHCI.org, and I'll leave all of our HHCI information in our show notes as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Jantz and Matt.
Good to be with you today.